Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well today. Hope everyone's staying warm. This week marks a change in seasons on the Christian calendar. The church calendar is different than the regular 365-day solar calendar, the 12-month calendar that we use. The church calendar begins every year on the first Sunday of Advent, which is always 4 Sundays before Christmas, December 25th. And then it continues through the Christmas season. Then the season of Epiphany, which begins 12 days after Christmas. And then after that, Lent, which always begins 47 days before Easter, with the observance of Ash Wednesday, which this year is tomorrow, February 17th. The 40 days of Lent are meant to signify the 40 days that Jesus spent in the desert being tempted at the beginning of his ministry. These stories are recounted in the Gospels. And since Lent is 47 days long, and we are observing the 40 days of, marking the 40 days of Jesus' temptation in the wilderness, we typically take Sundays off as a mini feast day during Lent, where we don't have to fast. So Lent is a season of preparation for the great feast of Easter, and it has traditionally been a time of repentance and fasting, a time of prayer and reflection, and also a time of preparation for those who are going to be baptized. Ash Wednesday is an important way for Christians to mark the beginning of this season of Lent. Now, some people believe that the observance of Ash Wednesday and the season of Lent is just something that Roman Catholics do, but many Christians around the world attend Ash Wednesday services at their churches. Not just Catholics, but Orthodox Christians, Anglicans, and Episcopalians, many Lutherans and Methodists, and others. And Ash Wednesday gets its name from the practice of the priest or minister making the sign of the cross on people's foreheads with ashes. This is just a bowl of ashes, and it's mixed with some olive oil. It looks kind of gross, maybe. But what we would do is put the ashes on our thumb or our finger and mark the sign of the cross like that. So on Ash Wednesday, you'll oftentimes see people walking around with what looks like a smudge on their foreheads or a black dot, and those are actually ashes. The ashes represent mourning and repentance. And the dusting of ashes on the head is mentioned repeatedly in the Hebrew scriptures as a sign of people's mourning or repentance. At our church and many others, the ashes are gathered from the burning of the palms from the previous year's Palm Sunday service. When placing the ashes on the forehead, it's common to say to people, "Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return." This is to remind us that life is fragile and fleeting, that we are a small part of something that's much bigger than ourselves, and that we are always in need of God's love and forgiveness. Many Christians fast on Ash Wednesday. Some also may not eat meat on this day. Oftentimes Christians choose to fast throughout Lent or to not eat meat on Fridays. In addition to fasting, many Christians choose to give something up for Lent as an offer of sacrifice, a way to remind ourselves that there are plenty of things in this life that we can learn to do without, at least for a little while. And oftentimes it's those things which might not be so good for us anyway. Or we might choose to take on a new practice of prayer or service in order to strengthen and deepen our spiritual lives. Today, the day before Ash Wednesday, is often called Fat Tuesday, or sometimes in the Episcopal Church especially, we call it Shrove Tuesday. And Shrove is just an old English word. And that's because of this tradition of trying to eat up all of the sweet and fattening things that are in the house before beginning the fasting of Lent. It's also the last day of the celebration of Mardi Gras. Ash Wednesday and Lent and all of the different things that many Christians do to mark these seasons may seem strange to those who aren't familiar with them. But for millions of people, these practices are important, a way to connect more deeply with God and with their faith. I wonder, if you're a Christian who observes Lent, what might you be thinking about giving up or taking on in this season in order to deepen your faith? If you're a person of another faith tradition, are there things that you might learn from how Christians observe Lent? Or are there similarities with practices that you might have in your own tradition? If you don't identify with any particular faith tradition, what do you think about all of this? Do you see the value in giving something up or taking on a new practice in your life for a particular period of time? The value in being reminded that you are a small part of something bigger than yourself? Something to think about. I hope that you all have a great week this week. I hope that you stay warm and stay safe. I'll be back next week. Until then, God bless.